welcome to the Pockets of Knowledge podcast. I'm your host, Desiree Stanley, and with me today is my guest, Fiona. Welcome, Fiona. Thank you for being on the show today.
Hi, Desiree, and thank you so much. I'm very, very grateful to be here with you.
I had the absolute pleasure of meeting Fiona about a month ago now. We were in Australia, which, Fiona lives there. We traveled there for an event that's for Amazon sellers. This was the Southern Seller Fest. And I guess it was kind of a new event for you guys down there. This was the first year that it was put on. Is that correct?
Absolutely. It's the first time Australia's had an event like it. And, to see 400 people show up, which for Australia is a big event, and have international speakers flying in as well. We haven't had anything like that ever. So the buzz was incredible.
Yeah. And you were one of the speakers as well. So that was exciting.
Yeah, it was so good. I haven't been on stage for over a decade. So to be able to get on stage in such a fantastic community and have incredible support like that meant the world to me.
Excellent. And we had the good fortune. You were gracious enough to give us a locals only tour. So we got to see kind of all the insider things that you wouldn't know about unless you lived there. And, we so appreciated that. We had such a great time doing something that, most people don't even know is there, that the hike that we took down to the edge of the cliffs to see the huts that returning World War II servicemen had built. And that was just fantastic. I mean, like epic.
Yeah, we had to work hard to get there on that particular day. I remember after all the rain, it was a bit slippery and muddy, but so worth being there. And, I was just incredibly grateful that you two were able to sort of get down that hill and back up again in the conditions that we went in.
It was for sure an interesting trek, but well worth it, because it was just fantastic seeing the water from that vantage point and the huts and just the wildlife. We got to see those kind of giant lizards. What are those guys called?
Water dragons. Yeah.
Water dragons. Okay. That's what it was. Yeah. So we saw a couple of those guys and some signs for, watch out for some snakes, which, was kind of like, get me out of here. But
yes, Spain is certainly full of lots of little critters. But funnily enough, you don't often see them, even though they're around.
Yes. And luckily we didn't see any snakes. So that was that. But anyway, so let's get on to our topic today. I wanted to have you share some information with us. You gave me a great kind of way to think about this. You were an entrepreneur and you kind of grew into a soulpreneur. And I think that's just a fantastic idea. And so I would love to have you share with us, kind of that journey. I know you did go to school to become a teacher. You actually taught for many years. And then you sort of transitioned into becoming an Amazon seller. And I'd love to hear more about it. I'm like, what was the catalyst that caused you to change from being a teacher to being an Amazon seller?
So around the time of the birth of my third child, and we're going back to 2008, I had reached a point in the teaching career where I was starting to scratch my head and think, what am I doing? It's like as a young person, you buy into this idea of going and getting a safe job and the career, and especially in the environment I grew up in as a woman, even though from a, ability perspective, and certainly for my tertiary entrance score into university, I had opportunity to go and do pretty much anything I wanted, but it was kind of drilled in, go and get a safe job, get a safe career, and with the idea that you then grow up and get married and become a wife. So teaching was something that was the safe career, and I did my master's degree, and by the time I was 35 I had reached the pinnacle of teaching. I was a senior teacher and on the top of the pay scale. And that was also around the time, that was just before the birth of my third child. So there were a few things that were starting to grumble for me in terms of, okay, well, I'm 35, I've done my postgrad degree, I'm at the top of my game. Where to next? Like, it just felt a little bit insulting to think that from a remuneration perspective, didn't seem to matter how good I was at my job or how much professionalism I brought to it. That was it in terms of remuneration. And then, of course, having 3 young children as well, and going to work and giving all my best time and my best energy and my best focus to other people's children, and then coming home with hours of work to do. And, I remember a critical moment one night when my 2-year-old asked me to read him a story, and I was full of headache because I'd had a really stressful day at school, and I had a pile of planning and programming and report writing to do. And so I told my 2-year-old, not tonight, darling, mummy's got lots to do. And I walked out of the bedroom with guilt just like raining on me. And I just thought, this has got to change. I can't be in a position where my children are going secondary to what I'm doing during the day. So that was my initial huge why, was that I wanted to be able to parent in the way I wanted to parent and be available for my children emotionally and energetically. The remuneration also played into it, but it wasn't the primary reason. I also wanted to create a situation where I would be able to have remuneration that reflected the effort and the ability that I had.
Right.
So from there, I went into digital marketing. So I'd started with some affiliate marketing. I knew the internet was the way to go, because my goal was to be able to work anytime and anywhere. And so internet it was. And I discovered this thing called affiliate marketing and did a little bit of online research. And without really knowing what I was doing, without having any training, I started making a few sales. And something in my brain was like, hey, this could work. Imagine if I actually learned how to do this properly, what would be possible? And so I did start following some of the gurus and started going to some workshops. And one thing led to another. And the next minute I had like a little consultancy business where I was helping small businesses to build websites and to help them rank on Google. This is when SEO was a lot more simple than it is today. We're talking 2008, 2009. Sure. Obviously things changed. So I went down that path for about 10 years. And it was around 2018 that I was feeling a bit burnt out by that. And I kept hitting glass ceilings in terms of just couldn't break through in terms of getting to that financial freedom, so to speak. I had replaced my teaching salary, but I had basically created a job for myself, and woke up one morning and thought, this isn't really what I had planned. Because without me, the business didn't exist. And it also meant that because I was consulting and I had to be at meetings and see people face to face, it didn't give me the freedom of working anywhere, really. So I was looking for something that would help me build an asset as opposed to a job. And that's when I stumbled across Amazon. So that was the end of 2018 that I stumbled across Amazon. And that's when the lights went on. And I thought, this vehicle, this could be the one that I've been looking for.
And so did you have to learn anything specifically to, begin a career or start a business, launch a business on Amazon? What did you have to do to get that going?
Absolutely. So although I had, a fairly good understanding of the digital marketing world, I knew nothing about manufacture. I knew nothing about product sourcing. I knew nothing about logistics. And Amazon is a beast of its own, and I knew nothing about Amazon. So there are courses out there, and I did find a course that taught me all the beginning stuff. And so during 2019, I was going through the training, and I was very fortunate to be able to go across to China to the Canton Fair, where I literally walked around like a deer in headlights, because that show is just so incredibly massive. And at that point, yes, I didn't know what my brand was. This is April of 2019. So there were so many shiny objects, and I was like, I don't even know where to look or how to focus while I'm here. So, but as a result, I did meet a supplier with a specific product, and that ended up being the first product that I chose. And so my brand was then built around that initial first product, which I then launched in January of 2020. So it took about a year, I would say, for me to go through that process of learning about product sourcing and developing, because my product was actually an original design. So I had to go through that process of getting it designed, getting it sampled, and it all takes longer than you think.
So was this something that you worked specifically with a designer to create, or was this you sort of hired somebody to design it for you?
So I already had somebody in mind that I'd worked with previously. So when I knew what the physical product was, the external design, I wanted to be very unique. And so I approached the person that I already knew and worked with them, with the brief. And it took us, several months to come up with the final designs. And then, of course, we then had to go through all the sampling, which took another couple of months. And then you've got the several months of manufacture, and then you've got the, month on the ship, on the boats going to the US. So you can see why 2019, by the time I went to Canton and then didn't launch till January, that's the reason why it took that long. Not saying that everyone has to do it that way. There's certainly plenty of people who are able to launch quickly because they buy something off the shelf from a supplier in China and they just whack their labels on it. That's a different approach, which I haven't taken.
Got it. Yeah. So 2020 is when you launched the product. And so we all know what happened in 2020 because we're still dealing with the effects of all of that. And so that obviously must have had some kind of impact on your business.
Okay. So there's two sides to that coin. One is it had a very positive impact. And the other is that it made things extremely challenging. So I was in the children's category, and because I decided to lean on my skills as a teacher, because I used to teach primary school. So in terms of being in the right place, right time, I had, by luck, chosen a brand that was in that children's category. And although my first product didn't really lean necessarily into solving problems that COVID created, I then pivoted, and then every single product that came after that was solving a problem.
Okay.
Still within, and they just sat perfectly under the brand that I had already developed. So from that perspective, my business grew very, very fast, which had its own complications in itself because the cash flow wasn't really there to support a business going rapidly. The other side of the coin was that COVID caused a lot of challenges in terms of, logistics skyrocketed and, quadrupled in price. The ports were being closed or held up, so stock was taking a long time to get there. Right. Everything became more expensive, and yet no one was really putting their prices up on Amazon. So there was that challenge in terms of how do we stay profitable? How do we stay in stock? Especially when you're growing at the pace that I was growing at. And I was in and out of stock several times throughout 2020 and the beginning of 2021 until things started to settle down and I started to work out how to manage this whole inventory and cash flow issues. So yeah, it certainly was an interesting time, but I also feel very, very grateful to have been live at that point in time in terms of selling.
It sounds like it was a big learning curve there for you with managing inventory, managing cash flow. And how did you learn how to do that? I mean, it's kind of trial by fire, it sounds like, but what was it about that specifically that you kind of figured it out?
Well, you certainly make mistakes along the way, but one thing that I've always believed in right from the day that I left teaching is the importance of having mentors. So I have had mentors in business right from 2008. And I think because of that, when 2020 hit and there were so many things I had to learn so rapidly, I had mentors and they were there to really guide me and to help reduce the severity of the mistakes that I had made and also to help prevent a lot of mistakes because they could see what was coming. So I think you know, is if because I was inexperienced, I think if anyone's thinking about going into an industry that they're not experienced in, to always surround themselves with people who have that knowledge and have that expertise, whether they're paid mentors or just perhaps it's a community of people that you can get advice from, whichever way works for you. I've always believed that having paid mentors who are free to give you their time because you've invested in them is better than just relying on someone who maybe might be too busy when you need them. So because they're doing it for free. So that's I think that's really, really helped. But I think the other thing that really became evident for me in 2020 with all of that pressure and all of those challenges was I realized that I, as a human, needed to do a lot of growing, because so many things came up for me, so many triggers, health issues, self-limiting beliefs, that I was starting to become very conscious and aware of what was going on in my brain, because I'd think, well, why aren't I doing that? Or why am I responding in this way? Or how come I can't get that goal accomplished? And I realized it was not so much the external things, it was me. And that was quite a significant turnaround for my business. And because I realized that the biggest block to success and health for me was myself. It was all internal. And I then started to realize that having business mentors is one thing, but what am I doing in terms of getting mentors and getting the help that I need to work on the stuff that's going on within me?
Yeah, that's fantastic. And it's so right on, because really the work begins inside, right? Within yourself, in your own physical well-being, health, fitness, eating right, all of that, but the mental as well, right? Mindset is a huge part of everything we do. I mean, it really determines what you can accomplish.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. And I think too, it's very easy to get caught up in status quo and think, well, this is my mindset and I just need to learn to deal with it. But it's not the case. We can step out of status quo, and the more you start to become aware, and then once you're aware, you can start to observe your thoughts and your patterns and your triggers. And then what you can do when you step out of status quo is reprogram all of that and replace those patterns and beliefs and behaviors with things that are actually going to help to draw the results that you want into your life. And I mean, that's not an easy process, but it's entirely possible. And, it's just that, like, I always think that you're getting back in the driver's seat of your car rather than being in the passenger, because when you're the passenger, it's all the past programming that's doing the driving. It's your body brain that's doing the driving, and you just kind of sit there and kind of respond to things as they're happening. But what if you could get back into the driver's seat and actually be making the decisions as to which roads you're going to turn down?
Yeah, I love that. I love that. That's right on. Absolutely right on. Because it's like, instead of being reactive, right, reacting to the things that are coming at you, you can decide, I'm going to say, this is how it's going to be. And then, your response to those things is completely different when those things do get thrown at you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that made an incredible amount of difference. And it's no surprise, like for me, I'll just share with your audience, one of the things that I had a huge realization around was that I had set a goal at the beginning of 2020 that I wanted to get to that magic number of $100,000 US a month in sales. It seemed to be the big thing that seemed so far out of my reach. And so I'm very big on creating vision boards or goals, and I always print them up and put them, in my bedroom, in my bathroom, in my office. And so I put that in, November 2020, I now earn 100,000 US per month thanks to my Amazon business. And I caught myself out one day around sort of April or May of 2020, because I looked at that and instantly the brain said, yeah, you want that, but it's probably not going to happen. And I stopped and I thought, why do I believe that? I want it, but I don't feel it. I didn't feel. And so then I started, so then first of all, I acknowledged that that thought was there. And then I started to observe it and thought, okay, so what are you all about? Why are you telling me that, nah, you're not going to get that? And that's when the more I dug into that, the more I realized that Fiona had a self-limiting belief that success was for other people. And that was a really deep set feeling and belief system that had happened when I was a tiny little girl, because I was in an environment where I was surrounded by stupidly wealthy people, and I was in a working class family. And so my house, it was, oh, we can't afford that. And, we haven't got enough money. Whereas I was seeing all these girls who come home from school, come back to school from school holidays, and they've been to Disneyland. And then, when they got their Ps, they had the Mercedes Benz. And so little Fee had decided that that was the way it was always going to be. And I hadn't even realized that belief system was there until I was 50 years old, or nearly 50. And I was like, wow, okay. Do I believe that now? Like, does adult Fee have to believe that that is the case? And I was like, no, I don't have to believe that. So then the work was about reprogramming that. And I had to feel in my heart that what it would feel like to have that success, as if it's already happened.
Yeah.
When I was able to do that, guess what happened? The success came and the business went whoop. So
Fantastic.
It's not surprising that, because that belief system was there, I was, without realizing it, self-sabotaging myself throughout my life to stay below a certain ceiling.
Yes.
I wanted to go above it, but I was doing little actions, little things, not doing certain things that would keep me where my belief system felt safe.
Right. Or your comfort level. Right.
Yeah.
This is how it's always been. This is what I've always known. This is comfortable. Even though I want something better, I want to strive for something higher. No, that's just not where I'm at. This is where I'm at. I'm down here.
Yep.
And
exactly.
There's a book that I'll have to add into the notes later, but I read that, and it's really all about that idea, regardless of what it is you're trying to accomplish, until you change your mindset around whatever it is, if it's money, if it's physical fitness, health, whatever, until you change your mindset around that, you're going to go up, but you're going to come back down. Right.
Yeah.
You may peak up here, but then you're going to fall right back down because you don't believe it. You don't believe that you can be up here. You still feel like and believe that you should be down here. And, we see that a lot with people, maybe who are working out or trying to lose weight or whatever, right? You get into this great physical shape and then it goes, right? Because in your mind, you haven't accepted that you're here. You're still thinking you're here. And so your patterns of behavior bring you back down to that level, right?
And do you know that the key thing, we talk about mindset, but it actually is a heart set. I hadn't said that out loud before. That's a good way to look at it, because it's one thing to know, but you've got to feel it. You've actually got to feel it in your heart. Like, this is how it feels to be X. This is what it feels like to achieve Y. It feels like this. When your heart feels it and knows it to be true, the brain and the heart are coherent, right? You can't have this, try and convince your brain to sort of know something is right for you until you actually feel it to be true. So it's a brain heart coherence, I think, and that is key.
Yeah, that's a great point. Didn't even think of that, but you're right. That connection has to be at both places, right? You've got to feel it, like you said, in your heart and know it in your mind. And that's an excellent point. Yeah, I love it. So to get where you are now, you're working your Amazon business. You said, I had this goal of hitting this certain dollar amount every single month, and that would be success for me. At what point did you hit that? Was that in 2020?
Yes, I did. And I hit it much earlier than the set goal. And then it just started to snowball in terms of, once I had removed that limitation, I was on a call with Nat Cook, who is one of Australia's heroes. She and her partner, her volleyball, she did beach volleyball at the Australian Olympics in 2000. So she and her teammate won gold medal for Australia, and it was a big moment. But anyway, I was on a coaching call with her one day, and we were talking about going for gold and what does your gold look like? And we're on a Zoom, and I typed in 100,000, and so that would have been probably about, I don't know, 4 or 5 months before. I think at the time I was doing 40, 50 grand a month. So it was before 4 or 5 months before the November of 2020. And I typed in 100,000. And then when she got to me, she goes, "Oh, Fee," she said, "amazing, 100 grand a week." And I just laughed, and I was like, I said, "No, I meant a month." And she said, "Well, why not a week?"
Right?
Why not a week? And I was like, you know what? You are so right. Why do I have to just say I'm making 100,000 in a month? I'm going to change that. And so on my vision board, I've crossed it out and put a week. And in November of 2020, I did over $400,000. So I did my 100,000 in a week. So it just shows, like, set the bar higher than you think you can go, because if you don't reach it, you still might be above what you thought you could achieve, because I was thinking 100 grand a month. Now, I sometimes wonder if I kept it at that and hadn't raised the bar, I wonder if I still would have achieved that 100 grand a week. It just shows how much we cage ourselves into our little comfort box of what we think, where we feel we should belong.
Yeah.
And to have someone challenge me and go, "Well, why not?" And I went, "Well, you're right, actually. There's no reason why not. Let's set that bar."
Yeah, I love it. When we were at the conference, you were speaking, you were one of the speakers, and you actually kind of talked a little bit about some of what we're discussing right now, and talked about the mindset and how that perspective shift really just changed everything for you. And, that it was fantastic. I so enjoyed hearing you speak, and I'm thrilled that you're here today, sharing some of that, because it just shines through and what you're sharing, and, really telling people you can do more than you think you can.
Yes.
You don't have to, that self-limiting, it is self-limiting.
Yes. And one of the things that my coach says to me now is that, I say, "I really wanted da da da," and he always says, "And so it is." And I always stop, because I just think, oh, okay. So, as soon as you put that intention, and so it is, it already is, because the intention is there. You can bring that thing in the future to now and start to feel it like it already has happened. So it's just a little thing. It's a little shift, when you're thinking about something, you just go, "And so it is," and then keep embedding that in as if it already is. And it's interesting how the little serendipities and synchronicities start to show up around that. And I'm not saying you just sit back and wait for everything just to come at you. You still got to take action.
Right.
It's not about just being passive in this, but if you are already feeling energetically that this thing that you've thought about and imagined already is, then it's just phenomenal how the people show up, or the situation crosses your path, or all of a sudden you'll see an ad that solves a problem that you needed on that specific thing. And then as soon as you start to become aware that the universe is actually bringing all those things and putting them in front of you, and if you're taking the action to sort of go, yes, 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 and then you'll be amazed at what you're able to achieve.
Yeah, exactly. And you hit it right on the head. The universe lines up to bring you exactly what you need to get what you want. But you do have to work for it. You do have to make those choices and do the work that's necessary to get there. But everything just begins to line up perfectly to make that happen.
And it's about being present in your journey, to actually be able to see the things that are being presented to you. So, and that comes back to not, for me, like I have spent most of my life in fight and flight, go, 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 do, do, do. And as a result, carried a lot of stress. So, you know, for a lot of my life, I haven't been truly present because I'm worrying about the past and the future and what have I got to, and so I haven't seen all these little lights on the runway that the universe was putting in front of me because I was so caught up in everything else. It's like, you know, having blinkers on that you don't even see that they're there. It wasn't that they weren't there, they were. And so as I've started to slow down and be present and be observant about my thoughts and about what's in front of me and who's crossing my path, then you go, oh, there it is. And there it is. And it's like, wow, it was always there. I just wasn't present enough to see it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fantastic. So we talked at the beginning about entrepreneur to soulpreneur. So tell me, how did that sort of flow happen from one to the other?
Yeah. So it was there from the beginning because the brand which is in the children's category, I'm naturally somebody who's always, I'm a giving person. And so for me to be planning this vehicle that I knew was going to be a profit-making machine, I thought right from the beginning, how do I also give through this brand? And being in the children's category, I knew it had to be related and I wanted it to be related to children. And so as a result, every time a product of mine is sold, a portion of that sale is donated to a charity that supports disadvantaged girls. So there was that sole purpose sitting underneath the brand right from the beginning. But it wasn't something that I was leaning into heavily because I was so focused on the mechanics and the running of the business and so on.
Yeah.
As last year was progressing and the business was becoming, you know, it is now, it's very successful. I had a moment where I thought, I don't want to get caught up and get lost in the success, in the money. You know, it's not where I felt energetically I wanted my focus to be. Right. And so for me, it was really the right thing for me to do was to go back to what was the soul of the brand underneath, which was the giving part of it, and to lean in really heavily to that, because at the end of the day, the vehicle I have, whilst providing for myself and my family, and one day it will be an asset, for me, it is a vehicle mostly to be able to make a difference in the world. And that is to impact the lives. And I've set a goal and you know, and I had another beautiful coaching call with Genevieve Davis, he's a UK lady who's just incredible. She was saying on one of my Zoom calls that, you know, you should set a goal that is so big that if it were to happen, it would feel like a miracle. And she wasn't necessarily talking about soul purpose at the time. She was just talking about goals in general. And I instantly knew the minute she said that, what my goal was. And that was to reach 1 million little girls and to impact the lives of 1 million little girls. So once I set that in place, that is when the sole purpose of everything I was doing became massive. It became so important. And you know, now what happens for me is that because I have such an important, beautiful, soul-driven goal sitting underneath and everything that I do with the brand, you know, those days when Amazon are being extremely difficult and pulling a product down and not telling me why, or when, you know, shipments are getting pulled in by customs and delayed by 4 weeks and costing me thousands of dollars and whatnot, what gets me through now is those little girls.
Yes.
You know, I stop and reconnect. Well, why am I doing this? Why is it worth putting up with all this rubbish, all the noise, everything that goes on around me? Is because my eye is on that goal of those million little girls.
Yes.
And each month when I do my giving, so I wait for the end of month, I work out what my sales are, what each product has done, and then I give to each of the charities. And my heart just swells because, I mean, these little girls don't know who I am. They've got no idea what I'm doing, but it doesn't matter. My heart swells because I can see that the purpose behind this brand is so much bigger than me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yes, there's going to be financial reward for me at some point, but a million little girls, like no amount of dollars to me is going to change how that makes me feel. And that's where the idea of the soulpreneur comes through. It has completely flipped the energy around what I do as a business person.
And I can see how that why am I doing this? It just really carries you through those difficult times, right? And as you said, I mean, Amazon is a wild and crazy monster. You know, it is, as a seller, you have those challenging days, but you've got that behind you. You've got that purpose, and that carries you through. And that's fantastic. And if you would share some of the charities with us, that would be fantastic. There might be somebody who would be so inclined to, assist in some donation. We would love that.
I partner with a company called B1G1, as in the letter B1 and G1, which is buy one, give one.
Okay.
And it's a great portal for business owners because once you pay a subscription to be part of that, and in there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of charities. Now, these are not multinational charities. These are the small on-the-ground charities in the countries where all of the proceeds go directly to help whatever the cause is. Excellent. So 100% of the money that I donate goes directly to that cause and is not being chewed up. And that was really important to me. And I like that I'm getting to those smaller charities on the ground. So, for example, one of the charities I support is to provide literacy education to derailed girls in India. Another one is to provide sanitary items and reproductive education to girls in Kenya. So these are small charities where it's making a difference to the lives of these little girls and helping Absolutely. To provide equality for them. And, you know, I think that's, for me, that's something that's really important. You know, I want to see a world where there's more equality. And sadly, you know, in many third world countries, that's simply not the case. And, you know, when I see some of these charities and I see, you know, where the money's going, and it's almost eye-opening, because I think as a middle-class white Australian, often we're not even aware that these are issues for people elsewhere in the world. I had no idea that little girls didn't have access to sanitary items. And because of that, that means they lose a quarter of their education because they can't go to school when they're menstruating.
Right, right.
You would assume, I would have assumed, obviously wrongly, because I'm quite privileged. Right. You know, so it's an eye-opener to go, wow, you know, my white privilege, you know, makes me very blind to what people, you know, what their realities are. And so that's why I want to sort of remove those blinkers and not be blind to the struggles that people have, and do my part to help to change that. It's that ripple effect. And if we all are contributing in little ways, then that creates a huge ripple. You know, people go, well, I'm only one person, I can't make that much of a difference. But if we're all doing a little bit, then we can make a huge difference in the world.
That's right. That's right. And it's like we talked last week with my guest, Melissa, about, you know, atomic habits, and it's the small change, right, that leads to big results. So this is the same thing, right? One person, then 100 people, you know, then 1,000 people, and all of us coming together make an enormous change, right? That's
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think the world is, you know, I think more and more people that I'm speaking with and crossing paths with, I think there is a momentum building in terms of people wanting to be more than just about themselves and be more globally aware and contributing. And I know even from a consumer perspective, many consumers are more likely to be loyal and to purchase from companies that are giving back in some way and have corporate social responsibility. So I think the days of not being like that, especially as a business, are coming to an end. I think people are expecting that.
Yeah.
It's not, and that's not why I'm doing it, by the way. But I'm excited because I can see that there is this movement where the world is starting, especially those who are in a privileged circumstance, to understand that that privilege shouldn't be taken for granted, and we can use that privilege to help those that aren't.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. Right on. So great. Thank you, Fiona, for being on the show today. I just love your energy, your presence. It's beautiful. And what you're doing is fantastic. And I think that, I hope that people who are listening take what you're talking about and just implement some of these small changes, helping in any way they can, just even locally, in whatever manner. I think it makes a difference. And thank you again for being on the show. Before we go, though, I do want to ask you if there's any particular books or podcasts that you've read, listened to, that have made an impact on you that you could share with us that others might be able to take a look at.
One of my favorite podcasts is Stay Grounded by Raj Jana. He is one of the most beautiful human beings. That I don't know him personally, but I listen to every single episode, and often I will listen to them 3-4 times. I journal, I take notes, because the guests that he has on his show, and also he does quarterly reflections as well about his own journey and growth. And I have learned so much from him. So that's a great podcast. In terms of books, learning about quantum physics has been quite significant for me. And Dr. Joe Dispenza was where I started on my journey when I went down the rabbit hole of quantum. So if anyone's wanting to understand how quantum physics relates to personal development and growth, then highly recommend anything by Dr. Joe Dispenza. He's got, for example, on Gaia TV, there's a wonderful series called Rewired. I think that's 12-13 episodes. And really, it's quite a difficult concept to grasp, but he breaks it down in that series very, very well. And then, of course, all of his books are just incredible. So those who enjoy reading, just look up Dr. Joe Dispenza, and you'll certainly get plenty of information there.
Yes, excellent. Thank you. And I do love his work. I've read a number of his books, and they are fantastic. And he does meditations as well, morning meditations, evening meditations, which are fantastic, and highly recommend those also. Well, thank you so much again, Fiona, for sharing this information with us and your time. Beautiful. I so appreciate you being on the show. Thank you again.
Well, I very much appreciate you having me, and I'm so excited to see what you do with this podcast. Yeah, it's very exciting to see what you're doing, and I look forward to following your journey. And thank you. I am so grateful that you've had me on as one of your guests.
Wonderful. Well, we will talk soon, and thanks again.